All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming, and I've been going over chapters 1 and 2 of the Murach's ASP.NET Core MVC book, and I'm probably about 3/4 of the way done with chapter 2. And I'd like to finish that up if I can in this lecture, so we'll see how it goes. All right. Now, I've got it where my future value calculator is working. It does not look like this because I have not added the CSS yet. But notice, if you call a GET request, you get the empty form. Now, when I say empty form, you can see here that it says 0.00 because that's what we defaulted it to. After you enter a value in for the monthly investment, the yearly interest rate, and the number of years, and you click calculate, you get something like this. So when the app starts, as it says right there, it sends a GET request to bring up the empty form. When the user clicks the clear link, the same thing happens. When the user clicks the calculator button, or calculate button, the app sends a post request. And as it says, if the user has filled out the form correctly, it automatically sets the 3 properties. So you saw this before, but if I come over here, oops, I don't need that. But if I do this, and I've got the program running, it looks like, so I don't know where it is in here, but that's okay. So let's stop it and let's start it up again. Now again, using the same values that they put in the chapter here, they have what? 103.3, and you should get 37.71.46. Shouldn't be too hard to test. If I can find where it is. There it is. So 103.3. Now I should get right here 37.71.46. And I do. And the clear works as well. So that's all. Right now, everything is working as it is supposed to. The only thing that's really left is it doesn't look very nice right now. So it says so far the app consists of a single view file, which is adequate when you've got a single page. However, most web apps consist of multiple pages, and in that case it makes sense to split the view into multiple files. Alright, it says it's adequate to store the view for a one-page app in a single file. It says, then why does the chapter show splitting into 2 files? Well, because they're trying to equate you and get you ready for being able to do this in a, quote, real app, unquote. So the next thing, as it says, is it's going to show you how to add a file for a CSS style sheet. Now, if you don't know CSS, you can go out to the same URL I gave you before, which was w3schools.com, but instead of going out to HTML, just go out to CSS. It's a way of styling a web page. So what they want you to do here is, I think we hit, let's see if in the www root folder, do we have a CSS folder? Okay, let's check that out first. So there's www root, and there's a CSS folder, and it even has a site.css file in it with this stuff. Okay? All right, so this is what they want you to put in there. So I think what they want you to do is replace what's in there with this. So typically I type this in, but I'm just going to grab it. So I'm going to copy this, and this is what I'm going to do because I don't want to screw it up. So I'm going to come into this file that's in here right now, and I'm going to comment everything out. So this is a CSS file. This is how you make comments in CSS. All right, so that's everything, and I'm going to replace it with this. Now, what are we doing here? We're saying that in the body, everything that's located in the body, we wanted to have some padding, so we wanted a little space around it. We want the font family to be used to be Arial. If the user does not have Arial, we want them to use Helvetica. If they don't have Helvetica, every computer has a sans serif, so default to that. For our heading here, our H1, stick it right on top and make it navy in color. For each label, or this is basically what this is going to do, is it's going to right justify them, and it's going to set them up so they're the same size. All right, and this is going to put a little space, a little extra area at the bottom. Okay, so as it says, a CSS style sheet provides a way to store the formatting for multiple web pages. By default, the web app includes a style sheet named site.css. You can modify it or create one of your own. Now, before I go on here to this add the razor layout and view start, let's take a look at what we have here. I just explained what's going on in there, but let's do a file, save all, and let's run this again and see if it looks a little nicer and a little more like it's supposed to look, so to speak. All right, wow, I'm surprised it does not. Okay, and I believe it's because we haven't yet equated this in our startup file, and that's okay. We're going to do that next. Okay, so it says when you create a multi-page app, it's common to have headers, footers, navigation bars, etc. displayed on all or most pages of the app. In other words, you want a common look and feel. All right, in that case, it says it's a good practice to store the elements common in separate files, which allows you to keep a consistent look across all pages. To store elements that are common to multiple pages in a separate file, you can add a razor layout, which provides a way to store elements that are common to web pages, to multiple web pages on a site. It says then it usually makes sense to add a razor view start to specify the default layout. Finally, you can add a razor view to provide a way to store elements unique to a web page, and that's what they do next. All right, so what they want us to do here is come in, and it says go into the Views Shared folder and select Add New Item. So I'm just going to follow the steps that are here. So I'm going to go into View Shared. All right, I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to choose Add. And what do they tell you to do here? I'm sorry. Add New Item and select ASP.NET Core Web Category. Okay. New item. All right. And it says here, select the ASP.NET Core Web category. So they want us to come in here, and under the new item, they want us to come down to Web and find, so find that. Hopefully we'll be able to do that now. Show all templates. So Web. Okay. So we want to select the ASP.NET Core Web category and then the Razor Layout item. All right, so we want Web Core over here. So we want Web. We want Razor Layout. Select Add New Item. We did that. Select the ASP.NET Core Web category. There's web configuration here, but there's not a web category. Scripts, currency, sharp. ASP.NET Core. There we go. And we want to what? So ASP.NET Core web category and then select the razor layout item. So web, select the razor layout item and click the add button. So I'm looking for razor layout here. Razor layout, right there. All right. And layout.cshtml, select that and click the add button. Okay, so we've got that. Right click the views folder, not the view shared, and select add new item. So right click the views folder and select add new item. Right click the views folder and select add new item. All right. Select the ASP Core select the same kind of thing we did before, but now we want to select the Razor View Start item and click Add. So ASP Web Razor View Start. And click the Add button. The layout, as it says, provides a way to store elements common to multiple pages, and the View Start lets you specify a default Razor layout for the Razor views of the web app. Okay. Okay, so this is View Start 1. We've already got a View Start here. So there already is one under shared, but we're not told to put this under shared, I don't believe. Views full or not view shared. Okay. So we will do that. I'm going to leave it the name that they tell you to have, and I'm going to click add. All right, so there's not much in there, as you can see. All right. Figure 216 shows the code for the layout and the View Start for the Future Value app. If you study this code, you should see how it provides code that can be used by any Razor view in the app. Alright, the code for the layout is stored in the Razor file named _layout. This stores HTML elements common to all pages, such as HTML head and body elements. In addition, it uses Razor code to do some processing. For instance, it uses Razor code to get the title for the page from the ViewBag property. The code also uses a link element, and that's where we're going to bring in the CSS file. All right, so this is our views shared layout CSHTML file. So I'm going to grab this. So this is view shared _layout. Views shared _layout. So that's what we have now. All right. And looks quite a bit different from what I can tell here. So again, what I'll do is I'm going to copy this. I think I already clicked copy. I'm going to come back over to here. And this is a .cshtml file, so I have to put in my comments like this. That's the beginning comment. That's the ending comment. And we're going to change, whoops, sorry, we're going to change it. And we're going to add all of this stuff in here. So copy. So we've totally changed what's in that file. Then the big thing again is this is going to bring in our CSS file. All right, so file, save all here. All right, so that's the first part. The views underscore viewstart.cs HTML file. I think it looks like this already, but we'll find out in a minute. So views underscore viewstart.cs HTML. So let's look. See, it already looks like that. In fact, I think this one does too. So we don't even need this file. So I can delete that. Okay. All right. Okay. So it says, again, you can use the Razor file named underscore viewstart to set the default layout for all views in the app. However, if necessary, you can use the layout property of a view to override that default. Okay, we're coming sort of close to the end here. So, how to add a Razor view when using a layout with a viewstart. Figure 217 on the next page will show how to add a Razor view that works with the Razor layout in viewstart shown in the previous figure. To do that, you select the Razor view item from the Add Scaffolded Item dialog instead of the Razor view empty item shown earlier in the chapter. Then, in this dialog, the dialog here lets you name the view and indicate what you want the layout page to do with it. So let's take a look. They do mention here, it says, in good practice, it's considered, in general, it's considered a good practice to use a view start to set the default layout for all views in your app. Okay, so let's do this. So we're going to follow these steps that are right here. All right, this dialog that's here for adding a Razor view. All right, so it says to right-click the folder for the view, Views Home, for example, and select Add View. All right, so we'll do that. We'll click Add View, exactly what they told us to do here. Use the Add New Scaffolded item to select Razor View and click Add. Add New Scaffolded item and select Razor View. Add New Scaffolded item. All right, and choose Razor View. We did this previously with the Razor empty in here. All right, then click Add. Use the Add Razor View dialog to enter a name for the view to make sure that the Use a Layout Page item is selected, but don't specify a name for the layout page. All right, so this is going to be our views home index.cs HTML file. All right, so it says not to specify a name here. Add. All right. Now, here it says, again, this is the Add Razor view. As you can see, this is the same thing that's shown on page 71 in the text or in the PDF. All right, so I right-clicked, I selected Add View, I did the New Scaffold Item dialog. Now use the Razor Add View. It says to enter a name for the view. Make sure the Use a Layout Page item is selected, but don't specify a name for the layout page. Use the Add Razor View dialog to enter a name for the view. I think we already have a home index.cs HTML in here. There it is. I'm just going to click that and see what this does. I'm not giving it a name right now. Now notice it's installing some NuGet stuff. I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, everything this is doing. I'm not even sure if I'll need this file. But I am going to go in and in my views home index.cs HTML file, I'm going to do, when it comes back up, I'm going to grab all this, and this is what I'm going to put in there. In fact, I think I've got all that in there right now. I think the only thing they want us to add here is this. Copy. So let's go back in there. I'm not worried about this right now, but I'm going to come in here to this file that we already have, okay? And underneath here, I'm going to put in this view data title. Now, I think they don't have the layout equal null in here anymore, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it goes right into an H1. Wow. So it's quite a few things are changed in here. Again, since they show this as being index.cs HTML, I'm going to do the same thing I mentioned before. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to take what's currently in there. I'm going to remove this. So this is back to the way it looked before. This is a .cs HTML file. So I am going to put in here, I'm going to comment it out again. So okay, so now everything that was in the file previously, everything has been commented out. And I'm going to paste in that, which is the one that they show in the book. All right. Okay. Now, the only thing that's really left in here, as they show on page 72, is really 72 and to about 75 is validating. Goes to about 77. Validating the user input. Says at this point, the future value app works correctly if you enter valid data. Let's see if that's indeed even the case, or if I've screwed it up. So File, Save All. Let's run it again. Let's see if our CSS is in here now, so it looks a little more professional than it did before. There you go. So again, if I come in here and put in 103 and 3, again, we should get 37, 71, 46 here. We do. And I can clear. So as of right now, everything's working. That's great. All right. So let's stop this. Now the problem is, let's say I run it again. And I'm purposely going to introduce an error here. There's nothing in here, and I'm going to click Calculate. And I'm not sure if it's going to give me any errors or not. It looks like it's not. So let's try it. Let's put hello. 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 Well, that one I can only, let's put in 9. It doesn't matter. And click Calculate. Well, right now it looks like it's not doing anything. I would have thought it was going to give me some kind of an error message. And maybe it will over time. I don't know. But it's not working. That's pretty obvious. Because we've done no validation of our input. All right. It says if you enter invalid data, the app just displays a future value of 0 without displaying any error messages to indicate invalid data. When you code a web app, you typically want that to happen. That's what's known as data validation. So the first step they say here in validating the data is to set data validation rules. Then you can import the data annotations namespace. Now, believe it or not, we've already done some of this. Earlier, I showed you when we added some data annotations earlier, and then we took them out in our class files that became our database tables. We added some things in there, for example, that, I don't know, that the hours worked had to be between 0 and 84, for example. All right, it says the table in the figure describes two of the most common validation attributes. You can decorate a model property with required to show that indeed it's required, or you can put in a range attribute. It says when you put in a required, the data type must be nullable for it to work. To make it nullable, you can go to question mark after the data type. All right. The second example here shows how you can decorate using the required and the range. So I think we're going to put this in right now. All right. So they're showing in here how we can add this stuff. And I don't know if we add it yet or if we're going to do it later, but it's okay. Notice that now in our models, we've now got required in there. And for both those decimals, we've got a question mark to account for nulls. Plus, for the monthly investment, has to be between 1 and 500. All right. And then a model property, so if you don't put it in, we get some kind of an error message. So as it says, the process of checking data to make sure the data it's valid is known as data validation. You can use validation attributes of the data annotations namespace to add rules. For required to work, it must be nullable. That's the question mark. If you don't specify an error message, the data validation attributes generate a default one, which is usually a little bit terse, so you'd probably want to put in your own. To specify a custom error message, you can pass an argument named error message as the last attribute. So they're going to now, it looks like in here, starting on page 74, they're going to come in and they're going to change what we're doing in here in our model to actually add the data validation. All right. So notice what's now in here. I'm going to replace everything that we had with this, and then we'll come back and talk about it in just a second. Let's copy that. Let's go back then in here into our models and in here, and we're going to take and comment out this whole flaming thing right now. Everything. And then down here, we're going to paste in the new one. So let's look at it in the code here. Again, we have to add this using statement, which makes the use of data annotations possible. And then what's new? Well, notice this is required. And if we don't put it in, we're going to get our own error message that says, please enter a monthly investment. The range in here will say monthly investment amount must be between 1 and 500. So if you put something that's not within that range, that's the error that should come out. All right. So that's the monthly investment. Then with our yearly interest rate, it's very similar. If it's required, and if you don't put it in, you're going to get this. It has to be between 0.1 and 10. And if you don't, then it says the interest rate must be between these two values. Notice again, question mark there, question mark here. So here's the stuff for our monthly investment. Here's the stuff, move that back, that's for our interest rate. And here is the stuff for our number of years. And all of them have question marks, meaning they're nullable. There's question marks all over the place in here, because if you leave that thing out, you're going to end up getting error messages. All right. So what we've done is we've changed this to add data annotations. We're taking control of the program so that if you put in an invalid parameter for any one of those three input boxes, you're going to get one or more errors. Okay, and we're going to run this in just a second, but before we do, I want to go back to here. So it says there, when you use a property with a nullable type in a calculation, again, it must be assigned a nullable type. That's the question mark. If it returns a nullable type, it must be defined as nullable in the declaration. So we're up to the next part in here, which is really the last part that's in this chapter. All right. These are pages 76 and 77 in the text. It says the first example in 220 shows the index action for a post request in the home controller. The code has been modified so it uses the model state property available from the controller class to check whether the data in the model is valid. If so, the code calculates the future value and sets the future value or FV property in the view bag. Remember, the view bag is something that's available in your controllers and in your views. It's kind of a global to those two, anything in those two folders. Otherwise, it sets the FV property of the view bag to 0. That way the view can display the result of the calculation or the error messages. Either way, it passes the model object to the view so the values entered by the user are redisplayed. The second example, all right, shows the form element. It says here the view includes code that displays a summary of all the data validation errors. All right, the third example shows the future value app displaying error messages above the form. It says for now, this is all you'll need. So if you get the book, you can go in chapter 11 and find out even more that you can do with data validation. All right. So it looks like, at least, that what we want to do in here is to change our post that we currently have to this. And that says we only want to do this calculation if, all right, the model state was valid. In other words, it's going to check to make sure we've got valid values in all three of the input boxes. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to go over, I think that was in our controller, wasn't it? So that was right here. Now, one more time. That's in our post. So that was here. So we're going to comment out the post that currently exists in here, and we're going to replace it with a new post that's shown. And again, look at the difference between these. All right, here we've got this, which is the same as this, but we're only doing it if our tests passed. Otherwise, we're just going to set it to 0, and then either way, we're going to return it. Okay? All right. Finally, we want to come in where we're displaying this, and we want to come in and put this at the top. This line at the top of our form statement. Okay, so let's copy that line. Probably copy, but I want to double check. So copy, come back into here. This is in our views. Was that in our index here? I believe so. All right, so right at the beginning here, we're going to paste in this, which just says, give us a summary of our errors. I'm going to just add a little bit of white space in here to make this a little bit easier to read. Okay, now my hope is that I'm done. I'm not sure if I am or not, but my hope is that I'm now done. So I'm going to do a file, save all here. I'm going to come back to here, and I'm going to attempt to run it and put in exactly what they put in here to see if I get these messages. All right, but before we do, because that's the end of the chapter, a controller can use the model state property that's available from the controller class to check whether the data in the model is valid. A view can use the tag helper ASP validation summary to display the summary. Okay, they have pretty good in here, pretty good things at the end, and the summary is always good. I'm not going to go over those, but I want to show you that. So we've got this. So I'm going to come back here one more time, even though I know I've already done this. So I'm going to do a file, save all. I've got a lot of stuff open right now, so I'm going to close this. Just leave maybe the index.cshtml file open and get rid of everything else. When I say get rid of it, I just mean close it. All right, let's run this. Errors. Of course there'd be errors. Good news is there's only one. Oh, this is a .cs file. So we want to put /* here, and we want to end this with */. There we go. All right, so it's telling me the type or namespace. Oh, all the errors are gone. So file, save all. We're going to run it again. Sorry, I know I'm probably way over by now. Yes, I am. But this will be it. So I'm going to do the same thing they show in the book here. That is blank 18 and -3. So blank 18 and -3. Click calculate, and I get my 3 errors. Please enter a monthly investment. Yearly investment must be between 0.1 and 10.0, and number of years must be between 1 and 50. If I go back and clear this, the errors go away, and if I put in my values I had before, which were 100, 3, and 3, it's back to where it's working. So that's all I wanted to go over. In the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a layout of how I'm going to take the payroll program and break it down so I can start to convert that into a model view controller program. And I'll talk to you then. Thanks.